Can you hear me already? All right, guys?
Yes.
Okay, I had some problem with my audio yesterday. I'm ready when you are. If you want to do a countdown, Alicia.
Awesome sauce. We can begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let me move this window over. And good morning. I am Councilmember Kenya McDuffie, Chair of the Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. Today is Tuesday, November 29th, 2022, and we're convening this additional meeting of the committee virtually via Zoom. We're also streaming live on kenyamcduffie.ward5.com. The time is 10:08 a.m. and I'm calling to order this additional meeting of the committee. For the record, I'd like to note that we have a quorum, which consists of myself and Ward 3 Councilmember Mary Che, Ward 6 Councilmember Charles Allen, and Ward 7 Councilmember Vincent Gray. And good morning to all of you. Today, the committee will consider and vote on the following measures. PR 24-839, the Eastern Branch Boys and Girls Club Disposition Approval Resolution of 2022. PR 24-1035, the Society for Science and the Public Revenue Bonds Project Approval Resolution of 2022. PR 24-993, the Provident Group Bison Properties, Inc. Revenue Bonds Project Approval Resolution of 2022. Bill 24-1034, the Child Wealth Building Act Amendment of 2022. Bill 24-1089, the Howard University Property Tax Exemption Clarification Amendment Act of 2022. Bill 24-113, the Medical Cannabis Amendment Act of 2022, and Bill 24-228, the Fair Meals Delivery Act of 2022. Proposed Resolution 24-839, the Eastern Branch Boys and Girls Club Disposition Approval Resolution of 2022, was introduced on June 24th, 2022 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor. Is referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on June 28th, 2022. The committee held a public hearing on the proposed resolution on November 22nd, 2022. The district purchased the Eastern Branch Boys and Girls Club located at 261 17th Street Southeast, or otherwise known as Lot 0802 and Square 1088 in 2010. The property was transferred to the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development's portfolio for redevelopment in 2016, and a request for proposals was released in 2017. The district received 2 responses to the RFP. Unfortunately, the respondent initially selected by the district determined that the project was no longer financially feasible and allowed the disposition authority to expire. The DMPED then awarded the right to negotiate a land disposition agreement to the RFP's second respondent, Morningstar Community Development, LLC. The proposed resolution would authorize the disposition of this district-owned property to Morningstar Community Development, LLC. This proposed disposition would allow for the redevelopment of the adaptive reuse project of a currently vacant structure. The project will provide approximately 35 for-sale residential units, of which 11 will be affordable units. The project will also include approximately 2,000 square feet of community service space. The proposed method of disposition is fee simple. The units will be for sale. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Charles Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project has been tortured for quite some time. Ever since the district stepped in to purchase it those many years ago, it has sat vacant. And it is, for a very long time, it's been in Ward 6. It's recently, with the boundary move, is now just over the line in Ward 7. But it's something that we have worked on for a very long time. I was optimistic when we did our RFP process back in 2016, 2017, that we could really see something positive come out of it. Obviously, as you outlined, the initial selection, they were never able to get their financing together, and that project ultimately fell apart, and they went back to the second. If this is successful, I think that that'll be good for the neighborhood. It'll be good for the community to get this project going. Again, it's been a vacant building now for coming on 15 years or so. And so getting that back into productive use will be very important. We are about to rebuild the community park right across the street at Spielberg Park. which has been a priority of mine. That'll be a great asset to the community as well. I will note, just for the record, one of the things that the community had talked a lot about was wanting to see this be multi-generational housing, and really being able to see that type of housing come in. And the breakdown is 8 1-bedrooms, 14 1-bedrooms with den, 11 2-bedrooms, and 2 3-bedrooms. I don't know if that really represents a lot of multi-generational housing, since most of these are going to be 1-bedrooms. But I feel like I at least need to note that I don't think we're really going to be creating the type of multi-generational housing that I think was initially hoped for at this site. But that said, if we're able to move this forward and we can get this building back into productive use, I think that largely folks will be excited about that and to see this space kind of return back. And I'm looking forward to working with the developers to understand more what that community serving space really can be in a way that will help serve the neighborhood. So I appreciate it. It's been a long and winding road to get to this point today, and I'm sure there's a few more twists and turns to go. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you, Councilman Morale. I will note, I asked about the community space during the hearing, and I'm looking forward to hearing back from the developers about more specifics around what that is going to entail. In terms of the multi-generational housing, we also asked about the unit sizes, particularly given that this is for sale. And the committee's had a priority of really looking at home ownership opportunities for long-time residents and people of color, Black, brown residents. And so your interest in that definitely is aligned with mine, and I'd love to be able to work with you. I will note this is one of the older RFPs under this current administration, and more recently with some of the work that we've done together on the committee by having the large family unit study done by DMPED and identifying more priorities and opportunities for the city to incent larger family units. DHCD, which is not under the committee's purview, but nonetheless is using some of this opportunities to promote larger family units. But it is more so on the multifamily rental side. And so I'd love to be able to work with you and anybody else on the council to make sure that we are doing the same thing when it comes to home ownership opportunities in the district. So I really appreciate your comments and thank you for making those. Any further discussion? Councilmember Gray.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I too appreciate the work that's being done to be able to move forward with this. Councilmember Allen, I think you were the chief of staff back when we moved forward with this in the first place. I think Councilmember Wells was then the chairperson then. So I'm delighted that we can move forward with this, and we look forward to working with you and others to be able to make this happen as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I move the draft committee report in print with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Next, we're going to have proposed resolution 24-1035, the Society for Science and the Public Revenue Bonds Project Approval Resolution of 2022. This proposed resolution was introduced on October 28, 2022 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor. The resolution was referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on November 1st, 2022. The committee held a public hearing on November 22nd of this year. As introduced, this resolution authorizes the issuance, sale, and delivery of up to $25 million in District of Columbia revenue bonds to assist Society for Science. The loan will finance, refinance, or reimburse costs associated with the purchase and renovation of the property at 800 8th Street Northwest. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I move the draft committee report in print with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously, and the measure is approved. Next is proposed resolution 24-993, the Provident Group Bison Property, Inc. Revenue Bonds Project Approval Resolution of 2022, which was introduced on October 17th, 2022 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor. The resolution was referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on October 18th, 2022. The committee then held a public hearing on November 22nd of this year. As introduced, the resolution authorizes the issuance, sale, and delivery of up to $500 million in District of Columbia revenue bonds to assist Provident Group Bison Properties, Inc. in financing, refinancing, or reimbursing the costs associated with the acquisition of 4 Howard University student dorms. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I move the draft committee report in print with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously, and the measure is approved. Next, we have the Child Wealth Building Amendment Act of 2022, which was introduced by me on October 3rd, 2022, and referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on October 18th, 2022. The committee held a public hearing on November 22nd, 2022. The council funded the District of Columbia's Child Trust Fund program during the fiscal year 2022 budget process. Since that time, the Office of the Chief Financial Officer has been working to establish and implement the program. As part of its efforts, the OCF has determined that a few clarifying amendments to the law were needed. These amendments allow the OCFO to establish a single fund from which it will dedicate monies to eligible children and permit the parents and guardians of the eligible children who lack the capacity to receive updates from OCFO on the monies held in trust. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I move the draft committee report in print with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. The measure is approved. Next is the Howard University Property Tax Exemption Clarification Amendment Act of 2022, which was introduced by Chairman Mendelson and me on October 31st of this year, and was referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on November 1st of this year. The committee held a public hearing on November 22nd, 2022. If approved, the bill would provide a real property tax exemption and other relief for the Drew Hall dormitory located at 500 Harvard Street Northwest on Howard's campus. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I move the draft committee report in print with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. The next measure is the Medical Cannabis Amendment Act of 2022, which was introduced on February 26, 2021 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor. On March 2nd, 2021, the measure was subsequently referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety, the Committee on Business and Economic Development, and the Committee of the Whole. The committees held a joint public hearing on the bill on November 19th, 2021. This proposed measure expands upon the changes that the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety made during their markup. Among other things, if approved, it would allow medical cannabis patients to self-certify that they're using cannabis for medical purposes, and allow non-resident qualifying patients visiting DC to receive a 30-day temporary non-resident registration identification card. Will permit licensed medical cannabis businesses for the purposes of district taxes and any federal income tax deductions that is disallowed under the IRS code to deduct a loss of gross income occurring as a result of a qualified reduced fee patient sales. But also create a pathway for unregistered establishments that meet eligibility criteria to become licensed before any civil enforcement activities begin, and establish new license categories set aside for new medical cannabis certified business enterprises and social equity applicants to enter the medical cannabis industry, and provide capital and technical assistance for them by devoting the medical cannabis sales tax to the Medical Cannabis Social Equity Fund. This bill is important for a number of reasons, but also because it builds upon the work that this committee is led to foster social equity in cannabis policy and ensure accountability for past harms. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen.
Thanks, Mr. McDuffie. I appreciate you and your team's work on this, as we had This bill's moved through the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee as well, so I know it is a very large bill, trying to take in consideration a lot of different stakeholders. So first off, just acknowledging that and appreciating the team's work on that. I did have just one question. I want to try to understand one part of this. And again, it's a big bill, so I'm just trying to focus on one area just with some questions. And that has to do with the civil enforcement process for the illegal shops. If I understand correctly, what is in this version, which is different than what we marked up in the JPS committee version, would be that the enforcement activities can't take place for 225 days after an open application period, which would be for 60 days, would be open. And then in addition to that, the mayor would have to provide a 90-day notice before any enforcement activities could begin. I guess I'm just trying to understand, for the shops that are unregistered and are that they're operating unregistered, why do we have such a very long period of time before any enforcement could begin?
In part because it's going to be a very long time before any of the licenses can be issued under this framework. If you've been following closely, and I know you and your team have, it took a while for ABRA to even issue the last few licenses under the LOI that went out a couple of years ago. And so this framework that we have included in the bill is designed to allow ABRA to do its work by laying out the 60-day open application period and granting the time necessary to work through the applications that they're going to receive, but also allow for enforcement to be noticed so that people understand where the district is moving in terms of this medical marijuana framework, allowing some of the existing I-71 shops an opportunity to get licenses, bearing in mind that a number of things need to happen before that could really occur. And so we see this as the best way, working both with Cal and ABRA to make sure that we can lay out a framework that allows for a transition into legal licenses of currently unlicensed shops.
Okay. I definitely agree. We need to have that path. We're trying to create a pathway to help people to get that license, and that will take a little time. But would this mean, let's say, a current business that's operating without a C of O, operating without any type of license, there could not be enforcement for 225 plus another 90 days. So we're talking almost a full year that if they're a completely unlicensed business, that there could be no enforcement for that amount of time?
Well, if this is passed, it would create the avenues for I-71 shops to actually apply and obtain licenses, either using currently their existing locations and get retail licenses, or if somebody's interested in becoming a new licensed shop, then they would be able to do so under the 60-day open application period. And so it's creating multiple avenues. And if enforcement is your chief concern about shops that are currently operating in some manner that violates the law, then there are existing laws under which enforcement can occur with those shops.
Okay. Maybe between now and first reading, I'm happy to work with you and see if we can't make sure that we've got that clear around that there can be enforcement. But then what we're really talking here about is trying to create the pathway for the licensing of those businesses to be able to be in full legal compliance and be able to be a fully licensed business. But that we do have some enforcement entities or enforcement activities that may be needed. And I just want to be careful that we don't foreclose when we do have some enforcement needs, that somehow is going to be foreclosed for that full tolling of time.
Well, I probably need to better understand what you mean by enforcement as well, Councilman Allen, because if the idea is to create an avenue for currently unlicensed I-71 shops to get licenses, then to start enforcement before they get that opportunity perhaps doesn't make any sense, right? Do you want shops shut down who are actually in a process of getting licenses? That I don't think that would be the intent of what we're trying to accomplish here. If there are certain shops that are operating and violating, our criminal laws and any other existing laws that require enforcement, perhaps there's an avenue there. But I guess what I would not want with this is to send some false signals to a community of I-71 shops that we're trying to create legal pathways for them to get licenses and operate, be taxed and regulated. But then also say we're going to shut you down while you're trying to do that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's more of if there are illegal operations where we need to have some enforcement activities, I just want to make sure we don't foreclose that. But we can certainly talk about this after today's markup and between first reading to try to help sort some of that out. I appreciate it.
Okay, sure thing. Councilmember Che?
I just wanted to make an observation here, maybe, but as we work this forward, and perhaps it's already in there, but maybe the way to address Councilmember Allen's concerns is to say that they have to be in the process of applying for a license during this period, so that it's not that the illegal shops can just carry on for about a year, not intending to do anything and no enforcement. So I just offer that up as you all, I guess, are going to try to work out something.
I would just caution you all about, I understand, I appreciate that, Councilmember Che, and maybe that's an option. So I know for those of you who don't know, maybe people who are listening, as I mentioned in my statement, this bill was sequentially referred from first to the Judiciary Committee. They've already marked it up. It's before us now. We're going to mark it up today, hopefully, and then it goes to the committee of the whole. There are a couple of other areas that I think are important that I intend to, try to address with Cal. Like, for example, allowing the existing medical license shops to be fully integrated, vertically integrated. If you're a cultivation center now, then there should be an opportunity for you to get a retailer's license. If you're a current dispensary and want, to be a cultivation shop, then perhaps we should not foreclose that opportunity for you to do so. And so I think there's some other things that have been suggested more recently to the committee that we simply didn't have time to make work in this version of the bill. But as Councilmember Allen mentioned earlier, it's a big bill, and I imagine there might be some tweaks between now and what it looks like at Cal. I will say, in terms of enforcement, I want members of the committee to understand, and members of the public to understand, there are some problem shops, and I've had conversations with Councilmember Allen. 8th Street is one of the examples that he's used, and those shops should be dealt with. On the other hand, in my conversation with law enforcement and others, there are also some shops that are in the I-71 space that are not problem shops. And they in conversations with the committee, and in some cases testimony, want to be regulated and taxed, and they want to be able to have avenues to become legal operators. We're trying to use this measure to give them that opportunity. Will every single I-71 shop avail themselves of the opportunity that's created by this bill ultimately when it's passed? Perhaps not. But I imagine a significant number of them will, and I think that's precisely what we want to be able to do. And so I appreciate the comments that Councilmember Allen made, and certainly want to continue to work with you, as we have been doing for more than a year now, to produce the best bill possible that both bears in mind the safety, but also the past harm that's been done to communities in the District of Columbia, primarily Black and Brown residents who have been on the receiving end of antiquated drug laws and tough on crime, mass incarceration policies that have criminalized cannabis. We clearly, in the public and voters, have decided that they want to see a different framework in the District of Columbia, and we've done that over the years. And this is just one additional step where we're trying to fulfill those commitments through both the initiatives and the laws that we passed in the District of Columbia around medical cannabis. And so I appreciate the questions and the comments, and obviously look forward to continue to work with my colleagues on this measure. So is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I move the draft committee report and print with leave to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the measure is approved. Our final measure this morning is the Fair Meals Delivery Act of 2022, which was introduced on April 29, 2021 by me and referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on May 4th, 2021. The committee held a public hearing on October 25th, 2022. If approved, this measure would prohibit third-party meal delivery platforms from arranging to deliver a meal order from a restaurant without first obtaining an agreement with the restaurant, expressly authorizing the third-party meal delivery platform to collect meal orders and deliver meals prepared by the restaurant. It would also prohibit the unauthorized listing of a restaurant on the application or website of a third-party meal delivery platform. It will require disclosure of the fees charged by a third-party meal delivery platform. It will prohibit the inclusion of indemnification agreement in a third-party meal delivery agreement. It will provide a 15% cap on the fees third-party meal delivery platform may charge unless a restaurant opts to participate in a delivery plan that offers advertising and other services for a larger fee. It will require third-party delivery platforms that operate in the district to register with the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection and provide civil penalties and authorize civil action for violations of this act. I want to note, just as a matter of course, that there are a couple of things that we need to tweak in the language between now and first reading. One of them was brought to our attention, just working between staffs of the committee. Councilman Allen, I think one of the members of your staff had reached out. I know we've also been talking with Councilmember Che's staff in that she's the one who authored the fee caps emergency intent bills that the council has passed a couple of times over the last couple of years during the pandemic. And one of the things is make sure that we tweak an area that is found at section, I think it's B1, and it's lines 94 through 96 of the print. We want to change the phrase "at least" to something along the lines of no more than, so that it is clear that it is a 15% cap. And it's not more than that, unless a restaurant and a third-party delivery app decides that there are a number of other services or some other offers that they want to participate in that would require an additional higher charge or percentage. So I wanted to make that clear because I appreciate the staff raising that prior to the markup. And then I want to open it up to see if there are any discussion. Councilmember Che.
Yes, thank you, Chairman McDuffie. And I appreciate your bringing this forward, and especially appreciate adding that permanent cap on the fees for third-party delivery companies and what they charge our restaurants. These apps have become a fixture now, and it appears that they're here to stay, even as we've gone back to restaurants opening up after the pandemic shutdowns that we experienced. Now, these companies, though, have significantly more resources than our local restaurant industry, and this legislation helps put some limits on the relationship to prevent predatory behavior by these delivery companies. The requirements that delivery companies get the agreement of restaurants before listing the restaurants is an important piece of this. And I've been particularly concerned about the high fees that restaurants are being charged before we put a fee cap in place. Now, I just want to note that the fee cap provisions in the committee print are more limited than our current temporary fee cap. And it looks like we're following the approach in cities like San Francisco and Seattle, and that's not necessarily bad, but I do want to get a better understanding of those cities' experiences and how our restaurant industry feels about that approach. So as we go forward, if your staff has information on that front, I'd appreciate it. And then the second thing you made reference to, and thank you very much for that, there is some committee language that doesn't line up exactly with the intent of the fee cap, and it may look like it enables higher charges when we're trying to put a cap on. So thank you very much for working with that. And, you know, if my staff can be of any assistance, we certainly would be willing to help out. But in the meantime, again, thanks for moving the bill forward, and I'll be voting yes.
Thank you, Councilman O'Shea. Any further discussion? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you. I'll try not to echo too much of that. Just appreciate your willingness to make some changes or some tweaks kind of between now and first reading. I think two places, again, kind of just on the fee cap piece, it's to me, and you've already indicated working on this, the language around the no more than, I think would be help clarify, and then also making sure our intent is clear that when we're talking about a participating business opting into those additional services or just being offered those additional services, just clarifying that so we know how we have the exceptions that are warranted, but then also not allowing an exception that gets swallowed up by just offering but not actually opting into those additional services. So appreciate this bill moving forward, and appreciate your willingness to work those tweaks out between now and first reading. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. I appreciate those comments. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I move the draft committee report in print with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously, and the measure is approved. This concludes the additional meeting of the committee. The time is now 10:39 a.m., and this marks the end of one of the longer markups I've ever held. The committee can now be adjourned. Thank
That
you.
wasn't too
Appreciate it.
bad. That was great.
That wasn't too bad at all.
But we enjoyed it. See, that's the key.
I appreciate it. Glad you all enjoyed it. Take care.
Have a good day.
Thank you.